You have been to a funeral or stood before a gravestone. You see the ashes, the cold earth, and the finality of it all. The heart stops beating, the breathing fades, and you think that person is just gone forever. Right? That they simply vanish into dust, and that is the absolute end of the story? Wrong. According to the deepest laws of physics, not a single piece of them actually disappears. What really happens is something so beautiful, so profoundly connected to the entire cosmos, that it will completely change how you look at life, death, and your own existence. Think about a picture of yourself from 10 years ago. Look at that face, those hands. You think that is you, right? Well, physically speaking, the person in that photograph is already gone. They are completely gone. That sounds crazy, but it is just physics. Scientists have tracked the atoms in our bodies, and here is the beautiful, undeniable truth. 98% of the atoms making up your body right now, the carbon in your skin, the calcium in your bones, and the water in your brain, will be completely replaced within a single year. You are constantly breathing out pieces of yourself, sweating them out, and letting them go. And you are constantly pulling new pieces in from the world around you. So, if the building blocks are always packing up and leaving, what exactly are you? We like to think of our bodies as solid things, unlike a rock or a house built out of permanent bricks that just sit there. But that is the wrong way to look at it. You are not a house. You are a whirlpool. Imagine a whirlpool in a fast-flowing river. The water is constantly rushing in, swirling around violently, and then washing away downstream. Not a single drop of water stays in that whirlpool for very long. The actual material making it up is entirely different from one second to the next. Yet, the whirlpool persists. It holds its shape. It is a continuous, recognizable thing. That is exactly what you are. You are not the stuff. You are the pattern. You are a highly organized, incredibly complex pattern that atoms temporarily fall into. They drift in from an apple you just ate or a breath of cold air you took. They join the dance for a little while, keeping your whirlpool spinning. And then they drift away again to become something else. You are a living, breathing set of rules. But here's the problem. If almost every atom in your body is packing up and leaving, and new ones are taking their place constantly, why do you not just melt into a puddle on the floor right now? What holds the whirlpool together? There is a rule in the universe, a very stubborn one. Everything wants to fall apart. It is called entropy. Think of a beautiful sandcastle on the beach. You leave it alone, the wind blows, the waves crash, and eventually, it is just a flat pile of sand. Things do not naturally build themselves up. They crumble. The atoms naturally want to jiggle away from each other. They want to spread out into a chaotic mess. To stay alive, to keep your shape, you have to fight the universe. You are constantly climbing over a barrier. You have to actively pump energy into the system just to hold the atoms in place and to keep them snapping together in the right order. It is an exhausting, endless war against chaos. And the scale of this war is a beautiful kind of catastrophe. Inside your cells, there is a tiny molecule called ATP. It is your body's pure energy currency. At any given moment, you only have about 250 grams of it in your entire body, just a handful. But your cells are burning it and rebuilding it so furiously, wiggling and snapping atoms back together, that by the end of today, your body will have recycled an amount of ATP equal to your entire body weight. You are creating and burning a human-sized amount of pure energy every single day, just to keep your sandcastle from blowing away. So what is death then? It is not a magical disappearance. It is not your atoms vanishing into thin air. Now, death is simply this moment you stop fighting. It is the moment the energy stops flowing, the ATP stops recycling, and you stop climbing that hill. The atoms are still there, every single one of them. But the pattern finally lets go, and entropy wins. The whirlpool simply stops spinning, and the water goes back to being just the river. So if the whirlpool stops and the pattern breaks, where does all the water go? What happens to the actual stuff that made you? Here is a simple, absolute truth. The first law of thermodynamics. You cannot create energy, and you cannot destroy it. You can only change its form. And that applies to your atoms too. Not a single one of the 7 billion atoms that make up your body right now will ever be destroyed. They will not be deleted from the universe. Every atom in your body has a history, an ancient, violent history. Take the iron running through your blood right now, binding to oxygen, keeping you alive. That iron was not made on Earth. It was forged in the unimaginably hot core of a dying star, billions of years ago. When that star collapsed and exploded, a catastrophe on a cosmic scale, and it blasted that iron across the empty space of the universe. The calcium that makes your bones so hard, that came from the explosive shockwaves of a supernova. You are literally made of star stuff. You are a collection of cosmic debris that has drifted together, snapped into this beautiful, fragile pattern for a little while, and learned how to think. When you die, when the energy stops holding the pattern together, you do not vanish. You disperse. You simply give the atoms back. The iron, the carbon, and the calcium jiggle their way back into the earth and back into the air. They are released to go join something else. They have been doing this for billions of years before you borrowed them, and they will keep doing it for billions of years after you are gone. Do you think you are isolated from the people who have passed away? That the dead are just gone, sealed in a box, or scattered to the wind, completely separated from your life right now? Take a deep breath right now. Hold it for a second. Let it out. Congratulations. You just breathed in at least one atom that was in the very last, dying breath of Julius Caesar. How is that possible? It is just statistics and the constant jiggling of atoms. When Caesar exhaled his final breath, those atoms did not just disappear. They floated up, caught the wind, and over the last 2,000 years, they bounced and mixed evenly across the entire atmosphere of the Earth. The math is staggering, but it is true. In every single breath you take, you're inhaling pieces of Cleopatra, of Leonardo da Vinci, and yes, of your own loved ones who have passed on. Yet you are breathing them in and they are becoming part of your whirlpool. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute. What about dinosaur bones they dig up? What about human ashes kept in a sealed urn? They are not mixing with anything. And you are absolutely right. Sometimes atoms get trapped. The calcium in a dinosaur bone gets buried under thick mud and rock, locked away from the wind. Ashes sit quietly in a jar on a mantelpiece, but that is just a temporary pause. To the universe, 1,000,000 years is nothing. Eventually, the Earth shifts. The rock erodes. The jar breaks. The atoms will get loose again. They will wash into the ocean, catch the wind, and snap into new patterns. Nothing stands still forever. So, when a person dies, they do not leave the world. They become the world. We are physically, tangibly sharing the exact same pieces of the universe with everyone who has ever lived. Look out your window and find a tree. A massive, towering oak tree, maybe weighing tens of thousands of pounds. Just standing there, solid and heavy. Now, ask yourself a very simple question. Where did all that stuff come from? Where did the tree get the material to build that giant wooden trunk? Almost everyone will tell you the exact same thing. It comes from the dirt. The tree has roots, and the roots are in the ground. So it must be sucking up the earth and turning it into wood. It makes perfect sense. It is what our intuition tells us. Wrong. Think about it. If that tree was eating the dirt to build its body, there would be a massive, gaping hole in the ground right around the trunk. The tree would sit in a deep bowl, but there is no hole. The dirt is still perfectly level. So, if it is not the dirt, where did all that heavy mass come from? It came from the air. That giant, solid, incredibly heavy piece of wood is actually made out of thin air. Here is how this beautiful trick works. The air around us is full of a gas called carbon dioxide. That is one carbon atom and two oxygen atoms snapped together, happily floating around. The tree wants that carbon to build its trunk, but the oxygen is holding onto it very tightly. They like being together. To pull them apart, the tree needs a lot of energy. It has to climb over a huge barrier. So, where does it get the energy to break them apart? From the sun. Sunlight travels 93 million miles through empty space, hits the leaves of the tree, and provides just enough energetic wiggling to break that bond. The tree takes the sunlight, uses it to physically snap the carbon away from the oxygen, and then spits the oxygen back out into the wind for us to breathe. And what does it do with the carbon? It snaps it together with other carbon atoms, one by one, layer by layer, building the wood. That solid tree trunk is just carbon atoms pulled from thin air, held together by the captured energy of the sun. When you knock on a wooden table, you're quite literally knocking on woven air and stored sunshine. So, if our bodies are just temporary whirlpools of atoms, and all the stuff that makes us is constantly leaving, what exactly is the you in there? What is consciousness? What is a soul? Well, physics tells us something really beautiful here. It tells us we might be looking at it backwards. We usually think of ourselves as separate objects. Here is my body, there is the tree, and there is the star. We draw strict boundary lines. But if you zoom in close enough, down past the cells, down past the molecules, down to the quantum level of the atoms themselves, those boundary lines completely vanish. At that level, there is no empty space. Everything is touching. The electrons in the atoms of your skin are literally interacting with the electrons in the atoms of the chair you are sitting on, the air you are breathing, and in the light from the sun hitting your face. It is one continuous, wriggling ocean of energy. The separation is an illusion. Think about it like music. You can look at a piece of sheet music and point to an individual note, a C sharp, right there. But when you hear the music played, that C sharp doesn't exist on its own. It only has meaning. It only creates emotion because of how it vibrates against all the other notes around it. The song is not the individual notes. The song is the relationship between them. Your soul, your consciousness, the thing that feels and thinks and loves, might not be a ghostly thing hiding inside your skull. It might be the song. It is the specific, incredibly complex pattern of how your atoms are vibrating and interacting with the entire universe around you. Yet you are not an object that exists inside the universe. You're something the universe is doing. Just like ocean waves, the universe peoples. For a brief, brilliant moment, the universe has organized a tiny piece of itself into a pattern capable of looking around, understanding its own existence, and feeling wonder. And when the pattern stops, the song isn't destroyed. The notes just go back to the ocean, ready to be played in a different chord. So the next time you take a breath, or look at a giant tree, or even look at your own hands in the mirror, do not just see the solid stuff. See the whirlpool. See the ancient, temporary dance of stardust that has come together just to give you a brief moment to experience the world. You are literally the universe looking back at itself. But that leaves us with one incredibly massive question. If every atom in your body, every piece of iron in your blood, and every carbon in your skin was forged in the explosive death of a star billions of years ago, where did that star come from? How did the very first pieces of the universe wake up from absolute nothingness and decide to start moving, snapping together, and playing this beautiful song? How does absolute silence suddenly give birth to a violent catastrophe of light and heat? Well, and that is a completely different story. I will leave you something to imagine.